Welcome everyone to another episode of eSports Edition. It's actually the second. It's actually a re-recording, as I didn't realize that I didn't start the recording software properly. So again, welcome everyone, and today we have as guests one of the creators and managers of ExG, Exodus Gaming, ENiGMA. Hello, how are you?
Hey man, how's it going?
It's going good. And also we have the team leader for the LoL team of Exodus Gaming, Shoka. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm fine too.
Has been a year since we last spoken, roughly. So what's new with it, with Exodus Gaming?
Okay, so as I was mentioning just before, a lot's changed in Exodus since we last spoke. We've sort of toyed around with the management, restructured a lot of the stuff, got new sponsors, dropped some of our old sponsors because of differences, and sort of started working on areas that we were lacking in and areas that we were sort of overdoing, started to tone those back a little bit to focus on new areas and new sort of avenues to explore. So yeah, we've been sort of going through a lot of changes. You could call it sort of administration, where we've sort of been very critical over what we've been doing, and reports and discussions and meetings about how things are good in some areas and how things are really, really poor in other areas, and just restructuring the whole of Exodus based around that. So new websites being done, new logos being done, new game reviewers, new hardware reviewers, new guide reviewers, new team names, and a lot of other things. So yeah, a lot's changed since our last interview.
How about the teams that you're currently managing? I mean, you are expanding in that area, I believe.
Yeah, we've started to look at Shootmania, which is a new FPS esport. It's currently in beta, but there's been some really great competitions and tournaments for the game already, which is an absolute fantastic game. And we have a server for that, which is in the UK. It's really easy to find on Shootmania. You just click on UK and it'll be there. It'll say Team ExG. And we've also been looking into Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which we also have a server for, and Dota 2 and StarCraft. So we've kind of been looking at those, as well as FIFA, I should also mention. We've also spoken to a couple of players that play FIFA. It's not something that I have a great amount of knowledge in, as I don't in StarCraft. However, nobody in EXG has any knowledge on FIFA, except maybe one person. But StarCraft's something that we do have a few people in Exodus that play, and play it well. So I've got those people that I can rely on to help me out when it comes to recruiting players for that game. We were focusing extremely heavily on League of Legends, and solely in Europe, and we'd had a lot of applications come through that were from America and from Asia. We just don't, the time zones conflict, and the community is very different, and we have no experience with people that are from those countries. So we've recruited a team manager for Asia, who's a really great guy called Cask, who's helped us out a lot in the past and gives really great feedback on stuff and looks at stuff and has a really good point of view. And he's a really great guy, and he wasn't part of Exodus before, but still helped us out a lot. And he's English, but he currently resides in Singapore. So when we started to think we need to branch this out and get people sort of dedicated to these areas so that they can get teams into EXG, but in the models that those sort of continents are looking for, he was the first person that came to mind. He's got a lot of experience for talking to teams and sponsors and so on. So I spoke to him, and he agreed to join EXG as the team manager for Asia, and he's now working on recruiting and sort of talent scouting in Asia. So yeah, that's really great. And we also have ExG Social, which is sort of headed up by what we call our dwarf in ExG. I'm going to point out now that he can be a handful. He's a really great. He's young. He's a really great guy though. And he looks after the ExG Social, which is sort of like our social community that's attached to Exodus Gaming, and we have a bunch of people that just play games for fun inside the ExG Social, and he manages those people and sort of looks after them and makes sure that they've got things like channels, or if they're after specific servers, that he speaks to me and we start looking into getting servers for those people to play on. So he does a really great job, and he's from Norway. So we've kind of got like a manager for ExG Social from Norway, and we have a manager for Asia who's English but resides in Singapore. So we've kind of expanded a lot of our management as well, which has been very beneficial for myself and the other two founders of Exodus, because it's meant that there is less administration work that we have to do. Because before we recruited Cyrix, who's the ExG Social manager, we were looking after the professional teams and the sort of players that were playing for fun, and it was sort of at times got confusing, and we were spreading ourselves too thin, whereas now we're focused solely on the eSports side because he's got the social side covered.
Did you guys are also starting to cover hardware reviews and also gaming reviews?
Yeah, we've started getting in a few people into ExG as game reviewers and hardware reviewers and guides for games. And we've also started looking at eSports journalists to sort of join ExG as part of our team that will basically keep content flowing on the website when the teams are away practicing. And we've got a gentleman from Norway who is experienced in hardware, who's going to be writing reviews for what's decent for gaming, and it's focused on PC gaming, evidently, as where it's an esports based website. Our main focus will be games that are either being spoken about in terms of esports, such as Smite or Tribes Send or Shootmania, or Firefall, and they'll be looking at those games and reviewing them. And there might even be some MMOs on there that are coming out. So yeah, we've got those, and then the guides for games, which we've got a guide writer who's currently working on writing some guides for champions for League of Legends, and they'll also be featured on there, so people can go onto the website and look at guides for certain champions and builds and stuff like that. So there's that area as well.
And then moving on, the other area of the website that is new and unique, I haven't seen that in any other website of any esports team, is the gaming science, and you are responsible for those articles and the series itself. So what is gaming science?
Well, Gaming Science is a series of ebooks that I am currently writing that are based around health and fitness for gaming. It's not sort of an in-your-face sort of, you have to do X, Y, and Z. It's more of a, if you think you've got problems with your wrist or you've got a few symptoms, the guides are there and they can help you with things like dietary things. It'll explain things like smoking obviously restricts blood flow, and drinking alcohol can also be bad for it, but also on the flip side of that, a glass of red wine is really good for the cardiovascular system, and that can help things like carpal tunnel. So we go into depth with looking at foods and drinks and vitamins and nutrients that are really, really good for alleviating certain symptoms or problems that you might have through gaming, as well as exercises for things like carpal tunnel or deep vein thrombosis. But it's not sort of a, you have to do this, it's more of a guide of, are you aware that doing this could cause this? So if you've got the symptoms of this, lowering the amount that you're doing X, Y, or Z could, alleviate a lot of the issues you're having in this area. So we've been doing those. There's 2 at the moment, and I'm currently writing the 3rd one. And then we have the gaming science foods, which is a completely new concept, which is I'd like to say a sort of offshot of gaming science, where we look at particular really great what get termed as wonder foods, and we look at these foods and find basically really great foodstuffs that are beneficial for gaming. The first one's just been written. It's been online for about a week and a half now, and it's on spinach, which a lot of people may be disgusted to hear, but it is actually really good for you, and you don't taste it if you cook it correctly. You don't have to taste it, but you can still get the nutritional benefits of it, I swear, without even if you don't like spinach, it can be okay. And we kind of look at the nutrients and vitamins and sort of like what those vitamins can do to help you in gaming, and we discuss them on the guides and also give you a recipe that you can try that is completely idiot proof. I hope that is really straightforward and easy to do, and also you can cook and impress your loved ones or family or friends or whatnot. So yeah, there's that side as well. So we're kind of focusing a lot on the health and fitness side, because it's something that is not spoken about much in esports. A lot of the time you'll see people watching things like the Intel Extreme Masters, which I was watching earlier, and you'll see people chugging down cans of Red Bull. Now those teams, they I would hope have had discussions, and they know that they are bad for them. The way that energy drinks work is the sugars are a simple carbohydrate, so they give you energy really quickly, but they drop off really quickly. So the way that the energy drink actually works is the sugars give you energy really quickly, and as they're going to drop off, the caffeine is there kicking in, so it stabilizes it and gives you energy for a while, and then that drops off, but it drops off quite sudden, which is why people get things like headaches, nausea, or extreme fatigue or tiredness. They're not actually that great. They have a lot more side effects than what they do sort of beneficial effects, and of course a lot of them are carbonated, so they have carbon dioxide, which can, when you drink, you do, I don't know the best word for it, exhale some of the carbon dioxide.
Yes.
But some of it will stay within your body, which can cause things like muscle cramps and builds up of lactic acid in your body, which isn't that great, especially if you're gaming on something like an RTS like StarCraft, where you have to be pressing those keys really fast, get your APM going good, and you're there pressing the keys, and then you've just got cramp in your hand because of drinking energy drinks. That's not so great. So the food area of gaming science, spinach is really good for energy. It's a great alternative. It does take longer to get into your system, but if you if you're eating a decent balanced diet, you don't need energy drinks. You will have enough energy. So we're looking into those, and we do a lot of research in those to help gamers.
Have you seen any benefits or feedback from either the ExG management, friends within ExG, or team players of ExG when applying gaming science to their lives?
We started toying around with the idea of starting gaming science towards the back end of last year, and then a new player started playing with ExG called Misery, and she actually suffered from carpal tunnel, and that gave me the drive to start the gaming science series slightly earlier than what I'd planned, and to work on the carpal tunnel as the first episode. So we wrote that sort of almost specifically for her, but it wasn't sort of directed to her, so it was able to be released to the public, and it benefited her. I'm almost 100% positive of this, and we also released it onto our sponsors' website for their community. They've got a really great big community, so we've released it onto there for them to trial, and a lot of the people on there gave it a good test and reported back and said that, you know, this is a really good guide. Can't wait for the next one. So that was a great sort of spur to sort of for us to look at and say, okay, this is a really good thing, and a lot of gamers are wanting this. So we then started to develop the second part, because when Misery joined, it was originally just going to be this one-off sort of guide that we wrote for her, and then I was going to work on a whole series of them, but not release them piece by piece. It was just going to become this big book. So then we decided to break it down and do it for specific sort of things like carpal tunnel, deep vein thrombosis, sort of ocular problems that you might have, and other areas that we're sort of looking into that I won't divulge. Then all of the players that join ExG, you know, they're all told when they join, you know, if you do have any problems with health or fitness, come straight to me. I can help. Tell me what the problem is, and I will, you know, help you get it sorted. And if I can't do it, then I will know somebody who is experienced in dealing with it, and you know, I will make sure that you get decent attention. And luckily, all of my players, touch wood, except for one, which is Venom, who's currently on sort of medical leave due to an injury he sustained away from ExG to his hand. All of them are in good health and don't have any fitness problems. But if they ever do, then they all know where I am, and, you know, I'm always there to help them.
And if I also remember correctly, within the deep vein thrombosis article that you wrote, there was a case of a player that had passed away, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, unfortunately there was. I obviously won't state his name. It is in the guide for people to see. He was a guy from the UK who loved playing on his console, and he played on there, you know, for 5 or 6 hours in an evening if he had the time, and he would play with his friends on his Xbox, you know, and sitting down, people don't expect it to be bad for you, but, you know, the fact of the matter is, if you're stationary for too long, it can actually cause a lot of problems, and one of the big problems is DVT. And it in itself might not necessarily be seen by some people as a serious thing. They might just think they've got a pain in their leg, which people get from time to time. However, it's a blood clot inside the vein that builds up due to your legs being stationary or the circulation not being very great, which happens when your knees are bent anyway. Yeah, unfortunately for him, this build-up was there, and you know, it travelled to, I believe it was his lungs, and it caused a pulmonary embolism, and he unfortunately died as a result of that. You know, a lot of listeners might be thinking, oh well, you know, I'm young, it isn't going to happen to me. I'd like to state that this guy was young. He was only 20 years old, if I remember correctly. It makes no difference how old you are or how healthy you are. It can happen, and it's better to be preventive with it and try and stop it before it even happens by looking after yourself better. And they're very small steps that you have to do. It's not like it's a massive thing. It's not like a life-changing, you need to, you know, sleep for 12 hours a day and then wake up and run for 3 miles. It's nothing like that. They're really, really simple, small things that you can do, you know, to technically save your life. No, nobody ever wants to have a friend or even, you know, just a person that they read about die, especially somebody who hasn't, you know, isn't expecting it, that they're young. And the thing is with gaming is there isn't enough awareness in the health risks that go with gaming, and a lot of sort of teams and games companies and stuff, they don't want to talk about it because it could potentially harm their business. I don't like the idea of this. I think it should be transparent, and if you know that something you're doing could cause a health risk, the least you can do is ensure that you bring it to people's attention. So that's what we've done. You know, we have gamers like Shoka, They put in a lot of training that requires them to sit down at their computer for extended periods of time. I would hate for any of my players to become ill, let alone die. So the guides are there to sort of serve them, to give them the health things that they need and the fitness things that they need so they don't get ill.
It's an ongoing series, right? Am I correct?
It's going to be quite a large ongoing series, and then once we've got a decent amount released, there'll be a compendium released, which will be called We Ain't Robots Yet, and it'll be a modern day guide for the everyday computer drone, is the subtitle for it. And that's going to be basically like a big ebook, and we may even get a few copies printed. And that will sort of basically be all of the gaming science and a little bit more in depth into certain areas, and a bit more sort of, it'll have like recipes and maybe some pictures of some of the foods. And hopefully, if I can get a few people on board, some external sort of nutritionists that may discuss bits as well. So that will get released once the series is complete. There'll be this big compendium released as well.
Wow, amazing. Well, thank you.